Hello.
We're all good. My name is Ryder Foley. It's my pleasure to be here to facilitate the conversation today about rethinking education. And I think a couple of the remarks earlier today, thinking about 21st century technology in a arguably 16th century education system, kind of set the stage for our conversation today. Starting on the far left is Tiasia. She is a founding partner of SEAM Social Labs. You might see their name on your bag when you checked in. They focus on marketing solutions for economic sustainability, working to help communities develop. She was named one of the top 40 under 40 by New York News in the nonprofit sector this year. She has a decade of experience in small business and nonprofit leadership and has been working with organizations such as MOCAD, AHRC, and the Act Now Foundation for a number of years. Slightly closer to me with a, what do we call this, a salmon scarf, is that my color palette? Okay, is Emily Ford. Emily Ford is the Director of Outreach Programs at Columbia University. She facilitates relationship building between Columbia and school students, educators in the New York City area. Emily has a deep and varied background, which I hope she draws upon in our conversation today. Stacy, the white jacket. Oh, straight Pebbles. See, I told you one out of order. I'm sorry. Pebbles Russell.
Yes.
Is the creative director at Boulevard Arts and is the leading developer of arts-based experiences using virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed realities. So if you hear us say things like VR, virtual reality, AR, augmented reality, IRL, in real life, or MR, which is mixed realities, that's what we're talking about.
Or XR is
Or
really
XR.
convenient. That's the umbrella term.
That's all of the R's.
Yes.
Okay, very R-rated. She focuses on writing and design, research and directing. She formerly founded the Centrifuge Project in 2011, working on large-scale murals in the Lower East Side. And immediately to my left is Stacy. She is the CIO, the Chief Information Officer of New York City's Commission on Human Rights. She's charged with enforcing some of the most progressive civil rights laws in the nation. She formerly was working with the New York Department of Education, and that organization has 1.1 million students enrolled and tens of thousands of educators. And she worked on tech solutions with the Department of Education. Prior to that, she was in the private sector with Apple and a number of other top companies. So those are. I'm here with four very impressive people, and I'm gonna just ask them a few questions to get started. And our format will be: I'm gonna ask a couple questions, have some discussion, and then I hope to reserve half the time for audience-derived questions. So, if there are things that you want to follow up on, please jot them down or tweet them at us, or and then we'll pick up on them. So I'm gonna start with Tiasia. Considering the rise of smart devices in schools, on the streets, and in our neighborhoods, how does that impact kind of the community, and what is kind of the boundaries of learning and where we can learn from kind of schools or in the streets or at homes, and how does that boundary of where we learn start to be blurred?
So I think the boundaries have theoretically completely blurred as of now, and they've kind of started to diminish. I don't know if anybody remembers this, but about 2 years ago, Apple came out with this commercial, and it was about, I want to say, a 12 or 13-year-old girl who was on her iPad, and she was, at a pizza shop, and she was doing like a homework or a research project, and then she went to a store and was buying something for the project, but was still on her iPad, and then she was in her backyard at home. And her mom comes out in the backyard and is like, hey, don't spend too much time on a computer. And she looks up and she's like, what's a computer? And that, for me, it was mind-blowing in so many ways, because I was like, the generational differences when it comes to like what devices we think we're using. But that's what I mean when I say that the lines are super blurred. They've kind of started to diminish, because a young kid or someone from emerging generations now can take their device and they can start doing their research on their phone, pick that up on like a laptop or a tablet in the same tab, and they could move entirely through their community with that device. When I was a kid and we had a project due, I would go to the library. I knew the Dewey Decimal System. I had to like open up an encyclopedia, and you couldn't take encyclopedias out of the library, so you got to go and make black and white copies. So everything was really tactile, and everything was, my sense of community and learning came from physical experiences in brick and mortar spaces. So that's why I kind of want to say it's blurring and it's diminished. With that being said, I think the trick is, there are lots of smart cities getting developed and growing out. Not every community or city has that type of infrastructure yet. So we have some disparities going on. So how do we work to build out infrastructure and develop the tools and resources for every school to be a smart school, for every city and community to have like free Wi-Fi, so that a kid in a smart city can have that experience everywhere, and not some communities get free Wi-Fi and get iPads, and then some don't. Yeah.
Can I touch on that a little bit? I just, something happened the other day, and I feel like this is like the perfect example of what's going on this day in education. So I was at dinner with my husband and my kids and my nephew, and we were at dinner, and this is going to sound really geeky, but we were doing math problems at the table while we were waiting for our food. And what we did was we get what I would do, took a normal piece of paper and a pencil, and I wrote down the math problem, and I gave it to my nephew to solve. I actually gave it to my son, but then my nephew insisted that he could solve it. And he then took his phone, took a picture of the math problem, it recognized the math problem, it gave him the answer, and it gave him the procedures on how to get the answer.
That's cheating.
Have you seen this?
No.
Okay.
I would die.
So that's, when I saw that, I just realized that we are not thinking right when it comes to education anymore. I mean, I'm sure I don't know how he found this app, and I do have a history of being in education and in technology, and I didn't even know this existed. But when we're looking at education and smart devices, we have to start looking about how we're teaching our kids, because they're going to learn what they're going to learn wherever they can learn it now. And we have to pay attention to that and really meet them there.
Yeah, just a great comment on that. It reminds me that the learning and community that happens now happens in a virtual world and less in a physical world, and that impacts younger generations, and it completely touches on that.
Absolutely.
Emily, so Cosmos Project in Columbia University has some graduate students that have set up a bit of display outside. I'd encourage people to check it out. How do you think cutting edge technology can inspire educators and kind of foster educational opportunities in the community?
Yeah, well, we have some of our educators out there as well. We have two teachers that worked with us over the summer, and I think it's essential that we include educators in this conversation, and that we include ways we can support educators. To address, some of the anecdote is a perfect example of how and why we need to support educators to keep up with the technology that our kids are using, whether they're using it in the classroom or at the dinner table. So I think research has incredible potential to inspire and just expose people to the most exciting parts of science. So the discovery stage, which is what research is where all of the ideas happen, where all of the imagination comes in. I think certainly this is something we see in our K through 12 classrooms, but kids check out, I'm not a math person, I'm not a science person, and that's it. We need to find ways to keep them in the pipeline, and I think encouraging educators to find innovative ways, and especially if they can be hands-on ways to include them in that discovery and that idea and that imaginative stage of science, that part of science. I think this can have tremendous impact on STEM education at every level. So we run this program. It's called the Research Experience for Teachers. It's supported by the National Science Foundation. So this summer, we had a group of 10 teachers spend 6 weeks with us on, in our research labs at Columbia University. NYU is also a partner on this program, and they're tremendous partners. So these teachers First of all, they get a crash course in what wireless technology is. How many of us really know how our phones work, or how Bluetooth works, or how radio works? So first, understanding basic wireless technology. This is something that we all take for granted in our everyday lives, regardless of what age you are. Everybody at this point has a cell phone, and we don't know how they work. So this is something we definitely want our teachers to do, but we want to enable them, empower them to make this accessible to students of all ages. One of the nice things is engineering is really tangible. It's hands-on, it's project-based, but engineering is when you're building things. And again, this kind of skips over the scary math or the scary part of STEM and gets you straight to the hands-on engagement. And I think that's really powerful. And I think teachers and educators have the opportunity to get straight to the heart of the best part of science and the best part of technology by being included in the research. So, just a quick plug, visit the table, talk to some of our teachers. They have kits, they have these tangible projects that they're taking to their classroom. In the 6 weeks we had them with us over the summer, they came up with 25 different lessons in math, in science, in technology, in computer science, in arts, that they're using in their classroom to teach kids about wireless. How do waves work? How does this make our phones work? How do we use it?
Quick question, is this a one-time program, or is this opportunity going to come up again in the future? And if folks know teachers in the New York City area, contact you, that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely contact me. We have submitted proposals to keep it going. We haven't heard yet if it's something we can, it will definitely run next summer. Our hope is that it's something that we can run long-term.
Cool. Yeah, jump in.
Thank you. So I think it's really important for teachers to have access to this type of research and professional development. It's been said in a couple of the speeches so far that the schools vary as far as what technology is available. What wasn't mentioned, and from the knowledge that I have is working in a DOE and also being a parent of 2 kids in a DOE, is that you have the schools that have the technologies, and you have the teachers that know how to use the technologies and integrate it into their curriculum. And then you have the schools that have the technologies and the teachers who have no clue what to do with the technology and how to really make it enhance the curriculum. And then you have schools that actually have the technology and it's locked in a room and it hasn't been used for years. So when we are thinking about technology and we're rethinking this whole thing, we need to think about the aspect of how to train our teachers.
Can I mention that? So this particular project is wireless, and so one of the nice things about this is it enables students in classes to run experiments without the physical lab in their classroom. So students are able to get hands-on experience running experiments, so doing scientific experiments, collecting data, etc. But they don't need microscopes. They don't need a lab in the classroom. So many of our schools do not have those facilities. Right. But wireless technology allows us to do a lot of this work remotely, and I think that's incredibly powerful.
Pebbles, how might thinking about these kind of over the long term emerging technologies and how education might change, how might the kind of characteristics of the global workforce change? Kind of how might we tap into some of these creative scientific processes and think to bring in kind of other creative outlets and bring those together a little bit better?
Sure. Well, I think actually a really great segue from that remark. There are lots of scientific labs that exist in a very functional, gettable form at this point in both VR and AR, and actually in MR as well. That enable schools, students, individuals, full classrooms, whatever it is, to go deep into a chemistry lab without having the physical chemistry lab there, and in a sort of, long-term scalable sense that can be incredibly helpful and useful. So I come from arts content in a VR, AR, MR space, so what I have to say is a little bit different than that, but it is certainly around, and I think really important, again, for means of scalability and accessibility. But I think that emerging technologies, specifically the immersive ones that I work with, have this really great organic kind of innate characteristic that they can meet learners where they are. So regarding the type of learner that a student is or an individual is, that sort of that room for personalization in learning, I think even in short term, and what's obviously really nascent technology, can sort of free up brain space, but then also provide a certain level of sort of psychological validation. That may sound a little touchy-feely, but an analogy that I thought of sort of relating to this is, for many, many years, left-handed students would have their dominant hand tied behind their back at school because there's a right way to do something. Which, of course is not true, but, and I never had that experience being a right-handed person who was born in 1985. But I can imagine that that hurdle or hurdles like that are just an incredible hindrance when you are trying to learn and almost learning how to learn. So I think that, immersive technologies open up this kind of hard set mold that exists, and you can force a variety of learners through one set mold and come out with a certain amount of success. But I think that when the mold itself becomes malleable, the success rate grows or can grow exponentially for a much larger number of individuals. And I think there's not one way to do almost anything. And I think that immersive technology partnered, especially with education, especially for young people, not only fosters that sort of mentality in the mode of learning itself, but that then hopefully that sort of in the long run in an individual's life even can translate to that same sort of osmotic notion of thought when you're talking about being a contributing individual to society, someone who's creative, someone who is doing scientific research in ways that other people haven't thought of maybe before because they are sort of outside the box, if you will. And this is a little idealistic certainly, but hopefully I think that on down the line, if we kind of can harness this and use it most effectively, that this kind of cross-pollination of thought and this freedom to move around inside of your own head and still be effective and validated in, again, starting how you're learning, that the output, whether it's expressive or exploratory, just has a huge potential to really explode. It's to put a really cute bow on the end of it. I think that immersive technology has the possibility to really break the mold when it comes to education.
So I want to pick up on this malleable mold and pipeline. I've been disconcerted with the pipeline analogy in engineering, especially where the pipeline, the extruder at the end of the pipeline is an 1880s German man. And unless you fit through the extruder as an 1880s German man in all of the manifestations of that, being intentional, you don't get through. And my concern there is that we need to, as you said, change that mold and at least come up with variable nozzles so people can come out differently, or that there are different channels of success in the discovery process, and that people can realize that lots of different people can discover things and that you don't have to fit a certain mold. So I really like the malleable model idea as a transition and thinking about that. And you've argued that immersive technologies are going to make the greatest impact.
I don't think that they'll make the greatest impact necessarily. It's just that happens to be the one that I'm the most familiar with, and I see the potential in it on a daily basis.
Stacy, what do you think is going to make the greatest impact in the next 5 to 10 years in terms of rethinking education?
That's actually a really good question. I came up with the question. And then after I came up with it, I was like, oh, I probably should have come up with an easier question for myself. I think this will be fine. So I started thinking about this, doing work in technology and education and having kids and seeing how, the whole system works right now. I think one of the buzzwords that is not going to be a surprise is that I think AI is going to have a significant impact on education. Maybe not in the way that you possibly are thinking about it, but what I'm thinking about is it will help relieve teachers from the mundane work that they have to do as part of being a teacher, and the stuff that has nothing to do with the subject matter that they teach. In New York City schools right now, kids are still actually taking some tests using Scantron. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the state tests, but they're written and we don't get scores back for months, and there's no way to provide that feedback back to the children and the parents or the teachers. It's just a test for apparently a 1, 2, 3, or 4. So I think that the AI technology will be able to help teachers get the information they need in a timely way to actually inform their teaching. I think it will also allow for individualized learning. I think learning management systems are a strong potential for changing the landscape of education as well. But I think actually, ironically enough, the most important thing is actually going to be the media that is created for children. The education is not going to happen inside the classroom anymore. It's obviously expanding beyond that. And with the talk about 5G and all the speeds and smart devices, smart areas, smart cities, what we really need to focus on is the content that we're dishing out to children. So I think that within the next 5 to 10 years or so, it's going to be possible that the part of the population that has typically not had access to these devices and to internet will actually get access. And when they have access, we need to concentrate on the content that we're dishing them out through this access. So I think I answered the question. So the technology is like between AI and internet and multimedia.
Actually, that's. Okay. Yeah. Oh, perfect that you handed it to me, Tiasia, because I was going to say the content being so important, I think goes hand in hand with the fact that learning is going to happen everywhere. That it's not in a space where you as I'm sure most of us experience, you file into a room with your bag, you sit down, there's a teacher in the front of the room, there's a board where things get written, you write down what's written on the board and you write down what's being said or whatever it is, and it's really sort of boop, 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 robotic, and it's not like that. It's already not like that. And to get stuck in this thought pattern of like, oh gosh, it isn't working because the world doesn't work like that anymore. That math problem is the exact perfect instance of that. Yeah.
So one important part that you can even see in the panel here today is when we think about a phrase that you don't necessarily think is connected to education, economic development. We typically think, oh, business, commercial, real estate, like all of these buildings going up, the economy. But education is very much tied into that. Academic institutions and schools influence communities, and communities influence them. So I think it's really important as being community civic leaders, educators, that you look at cultural institutions that exist in your community and how to partner to collaborate and make these experiences happen. I know at Mokata, a museum that I used to work at, they have a program called Artists in Schools, and you would think, oh, it's about art and kids getting to do visual arts and painting. But it was actually a STEAM program, so science, am I gonna go to science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And they created robots and would do exhibitions with that. And the whole purpose of it is to remind people that as we shift out of this whole industrialist era, we're not these left versus right brain beings that everyone kind of wanted us to think we are. It can be holistic. Education can be more holistic. The economy can be more inclusive and holistic, and we have to remember that.
questions from the audience. I see one hand. I'm gonna be a glorified Mike Walker. Here we go.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kimberly Graham, the founder and CEO of UVI. We're a virtual collaboration platform for education, mobile-first learning. I want to thank you guys so much for being here today. I guess my question plays into what everybody's talking about today is the fact that mobile is the future, and we know there's not even broadband in a lot of homes, especially in urban areas. So how can we use mobile-first education to move this process forward?
Good question. I think a lot of the innovation we're seeing at the K-12 level is where it will start. I think it really goes back to equipping teachers with more technology, more skills, and a framework to understand that technology and how to use it. I'm speaking from an institution of higher education. We see more and more of it, but all educational institutions are slow to change, quite frankly. And I think a lot of the change and the dynamic part of education is on the individual level. So I think it's going to be a ground up, grassroots driven change, in my opinion.
Hi, I just have a quick question.
Oh, sorry, for response. Sorry, just wanted to touch on the mobile first question. Sorry. So in some schools today, that actually Wi-Fi sucks. Actually, so mobile first, maybe infrastructure needs to be addressed in some of our schools and our on the buildings and the communities. So I mean, I'm excited about all the things that they're saying today, but I hope that people are focusing on schools because that's the most important place to put these technologies.
Hi, sorry for interrupting you earlier. I just have a quick question or something that happened recently. Working with a friend who's an illustrator, so she's helping women get into comic books. And so she had a portfolio review and she asked me to come in to do the tech side. And I found that many of the students who came in, like their portfolio was their mobile phone. And then they didn't realize that they put a GIF that was too big or the page didn't load right, or they would say, well, my Instagram is my portfolio. But then one student admitted that her school just kept teaching her how to pump out art and didn't really know how to promote and how to really use the mobile technology to help her. Instead of coming with a tablet maybe, that there's some people who still want print, that none of that information was given to her. So she just kept using her Instagram as a portfolio. So how do we merge what they understand, this kind of confusion that this social media is not your new portfolio, but how to, how art can really come together with the new generation, merging that old with the new, so I just saw that 10 of them who came in, they all did the same thing.
So I'm really curious, why can't social media be the new
that
portfolio?
was my question too.
There is an illusion that I'm at a K number, so my art is beautiful and wonderful, and and then they just assume that I have this instant, kind of this online fame, so I'm perfect. And then when they go to the portfolio person, and they go, oh, that's okay, so is this sort of you're gonna have that industry sort of standard and you pushing out of the box, but they don't understand that maybe there's bots that got you numbers, or what you're clicking on likes to try to get everything in there. You're not creating this quality of print in which you would want to illustrate to become a comic book strip. Yeah. It's in a book mostly, in a print. So what would it look like in print? So I think everything is just so kept digital that they just don't, they think their comic book career is just going to be based on likes versus, I don't know.
I think it's both and, right? You can have a portfolio on social media, but then it's also understanding your audience and understanding the culture of your audience. And the audience, secondary audience might be the person reading the comic book. The first order audience is a management company that produces or kind of curates that, right? And so I sometimes this mic just, I sometimes teach my students how to dial a phone, right? Because there are cultures where there's a device on a desk still, and it makes a ringing noise, and it initiates a human response, right? And so there's at times, though, I think, breaking back out of the culture and then recognizing where and how you're communicating, who you're communicating with. And I think what you're talking about is kind of bridging that. And so how do we recognize that there are different ways of communicating, learning, and sharing?
Can I actually, especially, sorry, just about art specifically, and communicating visually. I think that sometimes it's easy to get like really excited about the forward trajectory of all of these technologies and the possibilities and how quickly things can be disseminated and all of this. But I think at the same time, if you want to have a really robust understanding of anything, you need to know all the different types of iterations that it can sort of embody, whether or not that's the one that you work in or the one that is asked of you, to the question of who's your audience. So if you want to be an artist, I think you should know that, yes, you could use a tablet, you could use an iPhone, you could use social media, you could do it with a pen and a piece of paper. You don't have to do it those ways, but those are the ways, and that might be asked of you. I think it's just sort of this all-encompassing, really kind of fulsome understanding that this technology is just another player. You know, it's not going to supersede anything. It's like Kindle didn't get rid of books. We still have those. I know, and then you see one now, and it's like, what is? Oh, that thing. That's right. People did that.
I think another thing, sorry, to briefly add on to that, is the demand we need to kind of push out in our communities to generate public-private partnerships so that can happen in schools. So at SEAM Social Labs, that's kind of what we work on, and then some. But if we think about like Google Education and like trying to figure out ways, I know it can be challenging in some schools without Wi-Fi, but like how do we figure out ways to teach kids that yes, on social media getting the likes is something good because then there's a demand and people means, you know, that means this, but here are other platforms, here are other means for it, and here's the tools and resources to use to make that happen and better understand it.
Yeah, and I also think that in this day and age when kids are on their devices all the time, it's really important for us to really teach them how to socialize with other people in real life, IRL.
IRL.
There's a gentleman in front.
Anyone in front?
Okay, then ready for you. Okay.
All right. Hello, my name is Shaheen Perry. I'm a programmer in training. My question is, do you think that we need to have tech as a choice in schools? Because as somebody who graduated from high school, when I got into college and like learned about programming, the one thing I kept thinking is, why I couldn't have like learned this in high school? Why couldn't I have learned this in middle school? Like I think, like especially in our day and age, it should definitely, it's a core part of our lives. And I definitely think it should be like, with everything else we learn, like with math, with reading, there should be like a tech section, like that somebody that doesn't need to go out of their way to learn. Because I didn't know about Codecademy when I was in high school. I don't know if it existed or not. It could have still been in its early stages, but I would have loved the chance of exploring that route in my high school. Because I know it could change the life of a lot of younger people, especially if they knew that this was a career option to begin with. But yeah, basically my question is, do you guys think that would be like a step in the right direction to include into public schools?
Yes, absolutely.
I want to ask you a question back. Are you saying that you got no programming access to training while you were in K through 12?
Yeah, absolutely none whatsoever.
Yeah, so that talks to like the disparity between schools, because there are definitely schools that offer technology in K through 12. I think as early as second grade, usually. And this is where public-private partnerships could also step in, and knowing what's available in your community. I know that Apple creates a coding camp every summer for kids that could probably be pushed into schools if possible. I don't work for them anymore, but like those are the type of partnerships I would like to see. It's definitely not reasonable for me to sit here and know that my children in second grade are getting coding and you went through your entire educational career and did not get one class in it.
Just to speak more to that, yes, absolutely, that it should be in K through 12. We know that not all schools are offering it. So a lot of the work that I do from the School of Engineering is supplementing and providing some of those opportunities that either the schools or the curriculum that they're using is not providing. We know it's important. We know people need it, whether it's for their everyday lives, for future career opportunities. We know that this is something that people want and something that they need. There are many ways to find it, whether it's public-private partnerships, whether it's through school, whether it's through partnerships with higher education institutions. So this is something, we don't usually work during the school day, during the curriculum. Teachers don't always have the flexibility to teach what they want. But I think this goes back to learning happening everywhere and learning happening, outside of the school. It doesn't have to be filing in, sitting in your class and taking notes. There are all kinds of ways and all kinds of opportunities to learn. And that's something that I find really exciting and something that I'm trying to do in my work every day is find those opportunities and reach students and schools that are not able to provide those opportunities to their students.
Sorry, I just wanted to say one quick thing. In the spirit of civic engagement, I hope you've gone back to your school and told them there's Black Girls Code, there's all-star coding, tell them so the next kid who's like you can get that opportunity.
And there's programs for teachers to train teachers how to do it too. Yeah.
And for a quick political aside, no child left behind is holding us all back. So we need to rethink our educational policy. Yes, sir.
Okay, my name is Daniel Bedenbaugh. I'm college student, freshman. I have, two questions. So the first question that I have, it's mainly related to kids that are teaching themselves. How should schools be able to, adapt and create, you could say that they could incentivize students learning on their own and adapt to that, because in this digital world, we have so much information at our fingertips. We have big data everywhere. How do we incentivize kids who actually have they push themselves to actually learn new topics, new skills? So, and the second question, it's mainly about Common Core. What are your thoughts about Common Core and how things are going to the fourth industrial revolution? How Common Core is just out of date and how it just
Not even a teacher in that phrase.
The second question about Common Core just circles. The first question regarding what teachers can do to kind of encourage individual learning goes back to what I think is the technology we need in schools. It's really hard for a teacher to sit in front of a classroom full of 32 children and then notice that you are more advanced or you want to learn something else and figure out a curriculum specifically for you, which is why we need to figure out ways to leverage technology in the classroom. So maybe that rather than them grading a paper, which apparently they don't need to do if you could take a picture of a math problem, they can really focus on who you are, what you like, and what your needs are as an individual instead of as a horde of 32 students. The second thing about Common Core, can I? So I feel like the concepts around the Common Core is smart, but the way that it was implemented, it was probably not the best thing. I think that it is fair to say that, we should hold our educators accountable to the fact that, at a certain age, a child should know this. And in 8th grade, you should be able to read a basic reading, like level A book, right? And it was a true fact that certain students in the United States could not even do that in 8th grade. So I agree with it in concept. I think that we need to finesse it a little bit in actuality and implementation.
So to reiterate, personalized learning I think is really exciting. I think it would be wonderful for each student to self-pace. and to earn their own credentials. I think it's going to be a while before we actually can get there. I hope that you find as a college student that there's more freedom and more flexibility, and that self-directed learning is really rewarded. In higher education, it is. So I hope that you're able to, that you've seen that in your college experience so far, because you'll thrive. If that's how you learn best, then you'll be able to take it as far as you want in college.
So we have 1 minute left, and we have 8 hands, and 1 woman has the microphone.
So really quickly, I want you to speak to the dean of your school to find out if you could be credited for it, because you potentially could, and we could talk offline about that. But I work with high school students and college students, and so Black Girl Codes and some of the younger programs don't really meet the population that I work with, but I know that there are a lot of young people who don't necessarily want to take the college path, but do want to kind of be engaged in the community and learn something and give back. And I haven't, as much as I've been looking, finding other programs outside of NPower and other programs that would be able to teach them and provide them resources. And then I also have some students with handicaps, and I haven't found programs that really speak to them. So I know that we're going off, but I would like to be able to speak to you so that I could make sure that I'm able to pipeline and bridge whatever resources are out there for the population that I oversee at Harlem Children's Zone.
So I'm gonna say this. So we have 4 amazing people. We've got 8 more hands and questions. We will not run away. We will walk slowly. Some of us might have to run away. And love to continue the conversation. I really appreciate your time, attention, thoughtful questions. Young man, I'd like to speak to you about self-directed education, because I've got some ideas for you as well. Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate it.